Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera, where I'm still at the park making a second video. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like tomorrow. The forecast says rain, so rather than have to wait till who knows when before I can make another camera video, I decided to go ahead and make a second one. Another good reason to make a second video is because I have a second really good camera to be the subject of this video. And the second camera today is going to be the Nikon F2 Titan, or Titanium F2 camera. For those of you who are new to my channel, I sell vintage cameras, vintage Japanese cameras. My online store, japanvintagecamera.com. I have an Etsy store which is also called Japan Vintage Camera. If you'd like to buy this Nikon or another vintage Japanese camera, please visit one of my stores. I'll post links to my stores in the description below the video. So anyone who is familiar with photography, or at least film photography, is going to be familiar with the Nikon F and F2 series. These were kind of the workhorse camera of professional photographers for 2 or 3 generations. And the Nikon F2 Titan is one of the later versions of the F2 camera. To many people, the Nikon F2 is considered the greatest 35mm SLR camera of all time. And that was just the normal variation. Nikon, I guess, took what was already, to many people, the perfect camera and made it even better. And the Nikon F2 Titan was that version. The only complaint I have about the Nikon F2 is that the black versions, which I kind of prefer over the silver ones, were rather fragile in the bodywork. The brass covers used on the top and bottom were rather thin and quite easily dented, especially the prism, if you have one of the cameras with what they call the eye-level prism. And here in Japan, a dent in the prism kind of makes a significant difference in the value of the camera, at least as far as collectors go. For normal shooters, it doesn't really make any difference. But this was kind of a weakness in these cameras. It made the cameras look quite old and beat up, even when they were still in really good working condition. So Nikon introduced was pretty much almost a dent-proof camera. There's no really such thing as a dent-proof camera which you can still carry without hurting your neck. But this camera is about as close as you can come to having one. Internally, it's the same as a normal F2 camera, but the titanium coverings, the titanium covering on the prism on the back, the bottom, and even the back cover here make this a very strong and very durable camera. Something worthy of carrying, climbing Mount Everest or even taking into space. And Nikon cameras of this era were used by NASA for space photography. A lot of you may have seen my earlier F2 video, which I made probably more than a year and a half ago. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'll go ahead and give you an overview of how to use and operate the Nikon F2 and what everything on these cameras does. Starting on the top left here, we have this film rewind lever dial, which is the same which Nikon has been using since the 1950s rangefinders. Below that, this kind of silver plate on the top of the camera. This is actually where you attach the flash, but you can't attach a flash directly to this camera. It requires an adapter which slides on and locks into place. Then you can put your flash on top of that. Nikon used this system because these cameras came with interchangeable viewfinders, and they wanted to move the flash out of the way so the viewfinders could be changed without having to take the flash off the camera. This is the viewfinder itself, and as I said before, this is the eye level, or what some people call the plain viewfinder, and by pushing this button on the back you can just release the viewfinder and take it off. We have a couple of electrical contacts located on the inside, and that's for use when you are using the metered prisms. You can use all the old photomic meter prisms on the F2 Titan. They work just as well as they do on the other versions of the F2. Here we have the shutter speed dial, and we have the same range of shutter speeds as we do on the other F2s, and one more extra stop over the original F. We have 1/2000th maximum shutter speed compared to the 1/1000th, which we found on the original F. Here we have the shutter release button, and we have a switch on the collar located here, which is a lock function or a T function to allow you to hold up the shutter for long exposures or maintenance or whatever. For normal operation, you just switch it to the center. You can't use a standard cable release on this camera. It requires an adapter, just like on the Nikon rangefinder or F models. I would have thought that this would have been a kind of an obvious improvement for the Nikon F2. But most people don't really use these, especially press photographers with the cable release. They'll just want to use the shutter release button. Here we have the shutter charging and film winding lever. And underneath that we have the film counter dial. Moving to the back of the camera, this is the eyepiece for the prism, and it has threads around the inside which allows you to use Nikon diopter adjustment lenses, so you can adjust it to match your eyes in case you wear glasses. I already pointed out the release for the pentaprism here. We have the little card holder here, which is how in the old days, you know, it was before LED or LCD or whatever readouts, you would just simply put the top card cover to your film canister or film box in here, and that would tell you what kind of film you had loaded in the camera. On the front we have a couple of things here. We have a self-timer lever here located on the bottom, and here we have a depth of field preview button and mirror lockup. So for depth of field preview, just push the button here like so, and that stops down the aperture. If I turn the aperture, you can probably see the aperture blades moving. And to lock the mirror, you push this in and pull it upward like so, and that locks the mirror. And that's mainly for use with the earlier Nikon 2.1 centimeter or 21 millimeter wide angle lens, which is actually more of a rangefinder camera lens with an element really close to the film. Really wonderful lens, and you can still kind of find these for, I guess, fairly reasonable price. They work quite well on these, but of course later on Nikon developed much more easy to use lenses which did not require the mirror lockup. On this side over here we have the release button, which allows you to remove the lens. On the bottom here, it's a little bit more complicated than some of the other Nikon cameras. First we have this little dial thing over here, and these other parts, this part here and over here are these parts engage in the motor drive system, which Nikon introduced for the f2 camera. It's a little bit difficult to attach the motor drive to this. You have to remove this latch here, and this is the latch which opens the film door entirely. And you attach the motor drive on the bottom, and it screws on. And when you attach the motor drive, make sure not to lose this piece, because I often come across f2s with the motor drive attached to them, and I take that off because I don't want to carry around the camera with a really heavy, bulky motor drive, and then I can't operate the camera because this is missing. So it's kind of a pain, but make sure not to lose that. Here we have the battery chamber. This is for putting in the batteries. You can use a couple of LR44 batteries if you're using the photomic prism. We have a standard 1/4-inch tripod socket here, and over here we have the release button, which allows you to release the winding mechanism so you can rewind the film. And we have we go ahead and open the camera here. On the inside here, quite simple, nothing any different than other f2 or earlier f cameras, or even the f3 later cameras. A good feature about this camera was the use of titanium in the shutter curtains, so you don't have to worry about those being burned up. I really like this blue anodized film take-up spool here, not like the plastic or material used in kind of the less expensive or other cameras. The film door can be removed here. Keep in mind that the original titanium parts for these cameras, such as the film door, are quite valuable. These ones used a special door which fit on this camera, just like the Olympus OM series Titan cameras, the OM4 tie and OM3 tie. If the camera is missing something like the original prism or the original door, that can have like a significant impact on the value of the camera. A lot of accessories were made for these cameras, several different photomic viewfinders. The earlier ones use kind of a match needle system, and as you operate, work the shutter speed, when you attach the prism, it attaches to the shutter speed dial, and as you adjust the aperture and the shutter speed, the meter is coupled and allows you to turn the dials until you match the needle in the center for the proper exposure. The later versions featured red LEDs to the one side or the other, and when you got everything centered in the middle, the right combination for the light, then you were ready to take a photo. Some of these, the later versions, the AS version is the most desirable. It's the most modern, the most reliable, but also the most expensive. On these cameras, the f2, you can fit any manual focus lens from the earlier f-mount lenses on the F cameras all the way up to the D autofocus lenses, which you can still find some of them produced today. Overall, this is a wonderful camera, and I would probably have to regard the Nikon F2 Titanium as the ultimate SLR 35mm camera. Anyway, looks like the battery's going dead on my my video camera, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video. I'll be listing this camera for sale shortly in my online stores. If you want it, please check in soon. I'll be posting more videos shortly. Please tune in again or subscribe if you want to see them. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.